150 years ago today, 5 days after Sumter, the Virginia Convention reversed its previous decision to remain in the Union and voted 88 to 55 in favor of seceding from the federal Union. A scant 2 days prior, Lincoln had made an executive proclamation, an executive order, calling for 75,000 troops to be mustered and armed against the South while the Congress was in recess. He did this without political authority and without congressional approval, on his own, by executive order. An order he had neither the authority nor the duty to make. The states are sovereign entities. The states created the Union. To pretend that it would require the permission of all member states for any state to leave is absurd and immoral. It directly violates the most fundamental concept of self-determination if it is to be considered that one's liberty is only valid if everyone else chooses to recognize it. Lincoln's war of subjugation of the southern states solved nothing to the legality of secession. Any act at all in which an armed aggressor determines the fate of another is not a matter of law, but a matter of force. One cannot claim moral superiority nor legal supremacy through violence and coercion. Today we gather as Southern, as sons and daughters of a most honorable legacy. It is our right and our duty to protect our heritage and our history from the usurpations of politicism, statism, and delusion. Our cause was as just then as it is today. We do not wish to be boot-heeled by federal agencies, nor live in fear of retribution for failure to pay sufficient tribute to that government. All we ask is to be left alone. I have several pieces of historical document that I wish to share today, and I have a new good friend, Mr. David Tatum, who is going to share with us as well in just a little bit. I think I'm going to go through a couple of pieces here and try to build, perhaps not the case for secession, but the case for sovereign liberties, of which secession is just one. Patrick Henry, on March 23rd, 1775, gave a speech before the Constitutional Convention. No man thinks more highly than I do of patriotism, as well as abilities, of the very worthy gentlemen who have addressed this House. But different men often see the same subject in different lights, and therefore, I hope it will not be thought disrespectful to those gentlemen if, entertaining as I do opinions of character very opposite to theirs, I speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The questing before the House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery, and in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be the freedom of debate. It is only in this way that we can hope to arrive at truth and fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such time, through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself as guilty of treason towards my country and an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, which I revere above all earthly kings. Mr. President, it is natural to man to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and listen to the song of that siren till she transforms us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great, arduous struggle for liberty? Are we not disposed to be a member of those who, having eyes see not and having ears hear not the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst, and to provide for it. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no way of judging of the future by the past. And judging by the past, I wish to know what there has been in the conduct of the British ministry for the past 10 years to justify those hopes with which gentlemen have been pleased to solace themselves and the House. Is it that insidious smile with which our petition has been received lately? Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition comports with those warlike preparations which cover our waters and darken our lands. Are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? Have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called to win back our love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, sir, what means this martial array, if its purpose be not to force us into submission? Can gentlemen assign any other possible motive for it? Has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter of the world to call for this accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir, she has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British ministry has so long been forging. And what have we to oppose them? Shall we try argument? Sir, we have been trying that for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer to the subject? Nothing. We have held the subject up in every light of which it is capable, but it has been all in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty and humble supplication? What terms shall we find which we have not done everything already exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves. Sir, we have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is now coming on. We have petitioned, we have remonstrated, we have supplicated, we have prostrated ourselves before the throne, and have implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of the ministry and Parliament. Our petitions have been slighted. Our remonstrances have produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications have been disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. In vain these things may we indulge the fond hope of peace and reconciliation. There is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, if we mean to persevere, to preserve, and violate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged and be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of all hosts is what we have left. They tell us, sir, that we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an adversary. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be next week? Or will it be next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every house? Shall we gather strength by irresolution and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying supinely on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemies shall have bound us hand and foot? Sir, are we not weak if we make a proper use of those means by which the God of nature hath placed in our power? The millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as that which we possess, are invincible by any force which our enemy can preside over the destinies of nations. And who will rise up, friends, to fight our battles for us? We have. The battle, sir, is not the strong alone, it is to the vigilant, the active, and the brave. Besides, sir, we have no election. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat, but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, sir, let it come. It is in vain, sir, to extenuate the matter. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war is actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring into our ears a clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand here idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? If life is so dear, or peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery, forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty, or give me death. Those words came from one of the most patriotic and revered men in the course of all history now known to the United States of America. At that time, 13 sovereign republics wishing to break off their communal ties, their coerced, their compulsory ties with the throne of Great Britain. Was what they were asking for so different than what our brothers and sisters asked for in 1860? I don't believe so. I believe that there are millions of people out there who also share that same feeling and that same call to justice, honor, and basic human rights.